Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Well, that's new. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Gig Harbor City Council study session of Thursday, September 29th. The time is 2:03 p.m. And I will turn it over to our city clerk for a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Barber?
Here.
Councilmember Denson is excused and may be joining us later. Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Likens?
Here.
Councilmember Rodenberg?
Here.
Councilmember Starset?
Here.
And Councilmember Wook.
Here.
6 of 7 present.
Great. And I would also like to thank and welcome our Public Works Director, Jeff Langhelm, who is here, Finance Director, Dave Rodenbach, our City Administrator, Katrina Knudsen, and our Assistant City Clerk, Tiffany Alamant. And then our first guest of honor, Mr. Guy Hoppin. Thank you for joining us. We are so happy to have you here and hope that Larry can join us as well. And just wanted to, we're just thankful that you're wanting to come and be a volunteer for the city. Just really grateful for you applying for this and for Design Review Board, and wanted to turn it over to you to just kind of tell us a little bit. Most of us, I think, know you, but for those that don't, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to serve on the Design Review Board.
Let's see. Well, I grew up in Gig Harbor, and actually at the Ed and Boat Yard. My parents owned it. And, you know, I've been involved for years. I was not necessarily tuned into what was going on in the harbor, but I would come home from fishing and see these changes that were, you know, and when you start seeing changes in 3 months' time or 4 months' time, you know things are changing. So got involved, and I don't know if you shared the application, but I've been an advocate for the Ed and Boat Yard and the Ansich Home Port and the Maritime Pier, and served on the Shoreline Master Program Advisory Committee and bunches of other committees over the years, and the DRB probably comes closest to, you know, intersecting with my experience and my interest levels. However, I did listen to a couple meetings, and the debate about siding on a building kind of lost me, but I guess that comes with the territory. So I'm mostly interested in the historic preservation end of things, but yeah, I mean, questions?
Yeah, I was going to open it up to council for questions for Guy. Councilmember Barber.
I'm just curious, Guy, what was it about the siding discussion that was kind of like throwing you off, I'll say?
Oh, it was just a little mundane for my taste. You know, it was so detail oriented. I'd have to read through the design review manual and ask Jeff some questions and Katrina some questions and Darren some questions to see.
Oh, they're not used to that.
Questions, yeah. So I don't know exactly. I've been in front of the DRB a couple times with issues, generally historic preservation site type things, but so that's what kind of hit me when I impulsively signed up and filled out the application. So I'm sure the reality of it is there's a lot more going on there.
Councilmember Wook.
Sure, thanks. Just as a follow-up to the historic preservation, you know, I don't know this. Do you know how many locations that the DRB has reviewed for historic preservation recently in maybe the last year or two?
You asking me?
I am.
Oh, I wouldn't know. I mean,
so okay, so then how about this? Do you know any locations that would be ripe for historic preservation that we're not preserving at this time?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I love that. I can see it now from my house. The what we call the Triple T Marina, I think it's called the Co-op, the Egg Co-op.
Uh-huh.
building. That thing is amazing. I mean, and I'm not even sure, I don't believe I've met the owners that bought it from Hobbs, but that would be something to encourage, because you really don't see it unless you're on this side on the east side of the harbor or out in the water. You don't, I mean, there's few buildings that are that old that are that put together. There's no sag in the ridge line, and I remember it as a kid. That's the other thing I can bring to the table. Been around here for 68 years, so I see things that I've seen all my life that are valuable. And we're fortunate that 20 years ago, none of these sites were secure. Scansey, Edinburgh, Ansich, Wilkerson. I mean, so the trend is going in the right direction for historic preservation. And yeah, if there's something that I can bring to the table in that regard, that would be fun, for sure.
Several years ago, there was discussion about inspiring the owners of the egg building to turn it in actually to a place where you could go and buy fish and fly.
It'd be, yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, a fish market, having given it a lot of thought, and that's one of the reasons we bought that building at Bernhardtson and Harborview. But I haven't had time to go through the what would be, I'm sure, a struggle. Yeah, I can't see if Jeff is rolling his eyes. But you'd have to rezone it. And my theory on rezoning is go to the neighborhood first and get support, and instead of from the top down, like many do, and then the neighborhood finds out about it at the last second. So yeah, I mean, fish markets are, sourcing nice quality fish is not particularly easy, or consistently nice quality fish. And fish markets are hard because they're so perishable. Fishes, as you can smell when you walk by just about any store's fish market, that's not good fish you're smelling.
Not a good smell. No, it's not.
Yeah, that's some form of deteriorated fish or slime or something.
All right. Thank you, Guy. That's just what I wanted to know if you had anything in mind. So thanks so much. Glad you applied as well. Yes. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, applied.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, this is mainly for council members that aren't familiar with Guy. He was very modest when he talked about growing up here and his knowledge of the city. His family has been involved in city and have owned significant pieces of property throughout the area. And like he says, he grew up with it. I couldn't think of anyone better to look at our historic preservation. I think, didn't your family even own the property where the welcoming carving is now?
Grandma's mud, my kids call it.
Yeah, so that's how far his family goes back. And I think it's just wonderful that he's now on the PRB. So welcome, Guy.
Oh, thanks, Lee. Checks in the mail, man.
Councilmember Likens.
Yes, hi, Guy. I just wanted to echo what Councilmember Rodenberg said. When I met with you, when I was campaigning and after the election, that was some of the best hours I spent just chatting with you, to learn the history, to learn, your views about the port and the city. And I couldn't be more thrilled to support you. So thanks for stepping up.
Oh, thank you.
You bet.
Well, thank you, Council, and thank you, Guy, again for being here and for stepping up to do this. Really, really appreciate it. So, do you have any final words you'd like to leave with us?
No, I didn't really prepare. I didn't know what to expect, so I would like
off the cuff. Just
I look forward to working within the system. I've always been kind of pestering on the fringes, and advocating for things and trying to talk council members into stuff. And it'll be interesting to be on the other side. And thank you, Mayor Markley, for promoting my candidacy for this.
You are most welcome. We'll be very happy to have you.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see our other candidate, but maybe if they join on. Josh, were you able to call or reach him, or?
Sorry. Yeah, let me see if I can get him to see if he is available to come on later on in the meeting, if I can get him.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Guy, you're more than welcome to stick around and learn all about our budget process, or we can wish you a very happy evening.
Oh,
your choice.
That sounds great. I think I'll move on to the next thing.
Smart move.
Appreciate you asking though. Okay, nice to see you all, and thank you for the kind words.
Bye, Guy.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay, so yeah, we will see if Mr. Bradbury can join us later, and we'll go ahead and just get going on our second item, which is our 2023-2024 budget process overview. And our finance director, Dave Rodenbach, has put a lot of effort into this, and so we're really looking forward to this great presentation coming up. So Dave, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Mayor, and that was probably a wise choice by Guy. It's gonna be a little bit of a dry subject here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here.
And if council has questions, would you prefer them to ask at that time, and I'll call on them and watch for hands for you, or wait till the end? What would be your preference?
Anytime.
Okay. All right. So I'll watch for hands.
Okay. Let's see. No, is that it? Yeah. Let's see. Wow. So do you see the City of Gig Harbor budget overview?
Yep.
Okay. So to start, I've been over the years, we've been asked, why is this here? Why is that there? And the book has grown to be unwieldy. It's very large, and there's a lot of pieces in it that staff doesn't use anymore. Ultimately stuff was put in because people used it. Staff doesn't use it anymore. And then with all the new council members, I've seen all your eyes just spin around, why is this here? Why is that there? So this year, Josh and the mayor came to me and said, is there any way we could trim this down? And at first I sat with Josh and I turned the pages. Nope, we need that. We need that. We need that. And after he left, I started really thinking about it. Well, I like that stuff because I'm an accountant and I see those numbers and I know, and they're important to me. But you guys don't need that. Like, do you really need to know what the debt limit is when you're figuring out the budget? Probably not. Because if something big was coming up, we're going to talk about the debt limit and we're going to look at it. So we started looking at things, and we came up with hopefully a good prototype of a budget for council to work with. And what I did was I'm trimming it as much as I can. So if there's anything you need in terms of information that's missing, let us know and we can certainly put it back in. But I figured let's go bare bones, and then what we add back in, somebody out there is actually using it and we actually need it. Okay? Because in my simple world, the only purpose of all this exercise we're going through is to set our budget in the ordinance in a way that council is comfortable with, and that it's fulfilling the goals of our strategic plan. That's really the only thing we care about is getting that in there. And so this budget is supposedly going to hit, hopefully not supposedly, is going to hit all that, and it'll give staff the operating room in order to foster a healthy city organization and in order to meet all the council goals as they need them. And council will see these things coming through. So there's going to be a lot less detail in this budget. Like, so for example, you're not going to see a list of equipment that we need to replace. You're not going to see that police need to replace their tasers, or that we need 5 pickup trucks and a plow. We're not going to haggle over that kind of stuff. We're going to look at the big overarching goals of the organization, and that's what we as staff are going to pursue. So that being said, this is our budget authority, and this is what guides us through the budget. The steps are enumerated in this RCW, and our city policies add to this in term. So for example, if you look at the yellow right here, we shoot for the end of September, getting this to council.
Hey, Dave, you'll need to scroll down, I think.
Yeah, we're not seeing any.
Oh, you're
Just
not.
the first page. We're seeing the first page still.
In the second page now?
Nope, it's stuck on the just that of the overview page, that first page.
Yeah, put it on slideshow.
On slideshow? How do I do that? Let's see here. Oops. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. I don't have that as a choice. Let's see.
Is it a PowerPoint or are you going off a web browser?
I'm off of the power, or wait a minute. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, there we go. You should have it now.
You have to reshare and then we'll have it.
Oh yeah, reshare. Reshare your screen.
Now,
I
do you
see
see?
someone has come
You
in.
see
Maybe
that already? I thought I already had that up there.
it went away. We don't have anything on our
There
screen.
we go. Allow.
Now we
You
do.
have-
Okay,
Do you
now
have
we,
that now?
we see Budget Authority RCW 35A.
Right. All right. I cheated and went to my notes. I'm sorry. Okay, so there's the Budget Authority. Thanks for stopping me. And if you have any questions throughout this, please do stop me. So
Councilmember Rodenberg, did you have a question?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Dave, you said we're not going to get to see if we need 5 pickups and a plow. Eventually, will we see that in the budget?
In the official document, no. In the departmental presentations,
I do like to see that. I like to see what they're asking for. I don't want to see an umbrella number and not know what it's for. You know, I think it's critical that I know how many pickup trucks, we need a squad car, we need to have X amount in IT. I think that's important.
At what level would you like to go down to?
I'd like to know what the directors have asked for in their departments.
Okay, so we
at some point, I want to know what they asked for, and I want to know what it has been trimmed down to. If their initial ask was for 6 pickups and we've trimmed them down to 3 and they're happy with that, I guess I just need to know what they're happy with and what being presented in the budget.
Okay.
I don't see how council can make a good decision if we don't have that information.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Well, Councilmember Henderson had his hand up
Okay.
first, so I'm going to call on him first. Councilmember Henderson?
Well, it was just something on the page here, but let's continue with this discussion because it's probably more important than this question.
Okay, Councilmember Barber?
What I was wondering was if and I've not been through the process before and Councilmember Rodenberg has, but I'm wondering if when the department heads give their presentations, we'll get that information about, as we're using the example of the number of pickup trucks and that kind of thing. So we'll know what was asked for and then what was agreed to, but it won't necessarily be in the final document that is published. And would that suffice? Again, having not been through the process.
Well, maybe I can jump in and at least talk about what Public Works has and developed for budgeting. And it is a massive spreadsheet for each fund that identifies what items are going to be paid for. And I don't think anybody, unless if you really want to, happy to sit down on a one-on-one basis and go through that spreadsheet. But it's the numbers that operations, wastewater, and engineering put together to identify what we're spending where. I mean, do you want to see how much we're spending on software programs?
No, I don't want to see that. I don't want anything more than what we've had in previous years. That's for sure.
Okay. And so in previous years, it's been mostly the only difference that you're going to see from a difference from what's being proposed versus what we have done in the past is we've removed equipment from the budget. We keep the goals in there, but for operating, at least for operating, we talk about what the goals are, but those are one sentence goals. And for operating, we have removed all of the detailed description of what comes with the goal. And I can give you an example if you would like. For example, stormwater, we have complete the updating the stormwater management site development manual. Now that's a one-liner for stormwater operating. Previously, we would then have 3 or 4 sentences after that describing what we're going to be doing. But those 3 or 4 sentences are now gone. It's just a one sentence summary. And we've removed all of the equipment listings independently.
And if I may, Jeff, just to add on to what you said, the main purpose of going this way, as Dave mentioned, is the budget is not intended to be the work program, right? And so what we want to do is allow the department heads to manage the budget that they're given from the council in order and in the best manner to get the work done that council would like to have accomplished. And so if Jeff puts in there that he's going to order an F-150 for $3,500 and it switches, or 35,000, sorry, and it switches to a different type of vehicle, or he, and using his discretion determines we actually need a different type of vehicle more, he would have the administrative discretion to maneuver. And so what we're trying to do is have staff, particularly the department heads, have more control over their budget within the bounds of the council's budget authority for each department.
Councilmember Wook.
Thank you. Are we still going to see capital budget items?
Yes, you will. The capital projects will be listed just as last year.
And capital budget and items that we buy? You're telling me we're not going to see that?
Well, it depends on the item. If we were going to buy, I would expect if we're going to buy a Vector truck, we'll probably pop that out and say, this, the city plans to buy a $800,000 Vector truck. If we're going to replace 5 police vehicles or buy, we may put a thing under a little asterisk under the chart and say this includes 5 replacement police vehicles, but we're not going to list them out. And like Katrina was saying, we're not going to list them out with the dollar amount and a description.
So I don't know that I don't know how we are supposed to approve a budget if we don't know what it's for. I'm going to support Lee on this one. I don't know how we support it. That's our job. That's one of our major goals, is to approve a budget. But if we don't know what the money's being spent on, how do we have the information to approve it?
And
well,
so
here.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, I was going to say here's an example. I probably shouldn't have picked finance because we don't really spend a lot. But if you look at your screen, the new format we were talking about was going to be these 2 pages here, kind of like this. And if a new person was coming in or a staff, you'd see it right there under the org chart. Okay, but you're not going to get a full page discussing it. That would be done at the presentation by the department. Now up under the numbers here where it says budget overview, if let's say we were buying a significant piece of equipment, we would have a little line under this chart saying capital outlay includes a new Volvo for finance, for the finance vehicle or something like that. We would put something there that would be eye-opening. Otherwise, council, in looking at this, can look at across the lines, like for services. We spend about $50,000 a year, and you could see right on through. It's right at that level. And so council should be comfortable with that level of spending. When a number pops significantly, that's the discussion item we would have at the presentation by the department. So, and that's where we're thinking.
So I still would like, go ahead. Sorry,
Councilmember, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, each of the department directors, when they're presenting to you, they're going to give the total ask. So for instance, Jeff and all 6 of his funds operating in capital will say, these are the projects that we're going to do. These are the anticipated amounts. This is the amount of vehicles we're anticipating purchasing. These are the new positions we're asking for. And so you will know that in the budget presentation, and that will equate to the numbers that you're seeing under those specific funds.
So maybe we could have an example of what was done last year and what is being proposed this year for a project maybe in Public Works or someplace. I mean, I remember setting the 2022 budget, and the police did not get a vehicle. I think it was the police or Public Works did not get a vehicle that they thought was appropriate. And so it was nice to know that there was something that the Public Works needed. Maybe it was the Vector truck. I can't remember now, but the council decided after listening to Public Works that indeed they did need this particular piece of equipment. And so we put it into the budget. So will we know what is being asked for and what is not being included in the budget?
Yes, you will. And so they'll be listing out all of their requests. And I can tell you that neither the mayor nor I have said that they will not be getting any equipment that they're asking for.
Okay, all right. Okay, I just want us to make sure that we have enough information in order which to set a budget.
Yes, and as we're rolling this out, and I think Dave may have been getting there, but you know, we're trying to roll something out that's to be consistent with what council's expectations are of the public being able to look at the document and not be daunted by it being 2 inches thick. So we really want the council and the public to be able to utilize this document to say, this is what my city does for me. This is what my city is spending money on. And so as we go through with this, we're not saying that this is perfect. And so I appreciate Councilmember Rodenberg's suggestion that maybe we add in a capital outlay, but I would want to know from the directors to what level they would want that included, because we certainly wouldn't want to include every printer or small gadget that we're going to buy. But I think maybe for vehicles and things like that, we likely could have that asterisk that Dave is talking about from the budget overview indicating, 5 new police vehicles, new Vector truck, et cetera. So we can work that out.
Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. I want to echo Katrina's point is that I don't want to look at everything on the budget. I don't want to get in Jeff's knickers and say, Jeff, you really need 120 cases of 11 by 22 paper. Can't you do it with 110 and maybe recycle? I think if you guys came up with some bottom line that says, or some limit that says anything over 20 grand, if it's a single item like a vehicle of 30,000, 40,000, that would show up. But anything else, it's got to be up to the directors and let them, since they understand what's going on. I don't want to have to get in any kind of discussion with them about stuff like that. That's just, we would be doing this for months and months and months. And then I'm not sure whether we're getting too much into the weeds. Big capital projects, it's already going to be in there, correct? And those are the things that are going to make and break us. 120 reams of paper isn't going to make or break us. So my vote is set a limit, some level that says above that, you'll list it. Below that, just generalize it all.
Okay, I think that there was enough heads nodding that we'll work with the directors to see and what the directors want to do in terms of that number, but I don't think it should be too hard to list out the major capital outlays.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
I certainly support the directors having administrative authority to change something that's within their budget. And I want to put out there a scenario that is not going to happen, but I want you to tell me it's not going to happen. And I'm going to pick on the chief because he's a friend of mine. So let's say in the budget are 5 patrol cars at $200,000. Well, council doesn't get to know that there's 5 patrol cars. We've only seen $200,000. So I don't think the chief should have the authority to get 4 patrol cars and make them Escalades instead of Explorers. So I don't mean that to be humorous. I just want to know that if the budget is for 5 cars, we're going to get 5 cars. And we've always had a bottom line. We don't carry how many reams of paper. I mean, that just comes under office supplies, and And it's always been reasonable. I think this capital equipment is something that council should be made aware of when we go to approve the budget.
Thank you. Why don't you go ahead and continue on, Dave?
Sure. I'm going to back up a little bit now to here. This is the budget calendar, if you will. We work off of this with dates, but this is the flow of the budget. The highlighted items highlight the preliminary budget, which council should expect. By policy, we have it set for September 30th. We're not going to hit that this year due to two circumstances. One, we're reformatting the layout of the budget. Two, we're going from an annual budget to a biennial. And so it's taken a little bit longer to pull all that together. But this is the flow, and we're shooting for next Friday, October 7th, to hopefully get this to you. And if something happens, we'll let you know that you're not going to get it, but we're sure shooting for that. And back a little bit, I wanted to tell the newer council members, we have 28 separate funds for which we're budgeting. Okay. The general fund is the big fund. That's the one we really always are talking about, always focusing on. The general fund is the catch-all, be-all, end-all, do-all for the city. It can spend money anywhere that's legal for the city to spend money. We try not to spend it on utilities because all citizens are not necessarily a utility customer, whether it be water, sewer. I think all of them are storm. We have special revenue funds anywhere from the police, state drug and federal drug, to pedestrian improvement, to REIT funds, real estate excise tax 1 and 2, tax increment financing, HBZ. And then we have the debt service funds. We have 2 of those, one for the voted bonds for Ed and Boat. Those are about paid off. We have about 700 some odd thousand left coming out of that. And that accounts for the extra property tax levy that we do to pay those bonds. And then we have a LTGO fund, long-term general obligation, that's non-voted civic debt that we pay through that. And the general fund funds that one. And then lastly, we have enterprise/proprietary funds, and those are your water, sewer, storm. And the reason those are separate is they're supposed to support themselves through user rates. Okay, and so I showed you a glimpse of the new format. We're shooting for about 2 pages for each department. I think in this new format, you should see a budget document about 100 pages lighter than the other document, even if we do and include some more listings of whatnot. It's going to be a lot smaller. Some stuff that's not going to be in there are city financial policies, the 2 or 3 pages on debt with debt schedules. And certainly if you're missing and want any of that information, just ask me. I have it. Okay. So onward and upward here. Let's talk about the actual budget now. This is the economic picture we're kind of looking at. And we don't really know where we're going as far as the economy. I hate to say that, but just yesterday, 2 days ago, I was reading in the journal, consumer sentiment now is getting a little better. I just got the numbers for sales taxes for September distribution. We were 4% month over month through August. Just August 22 over August 21 was 4% higher. July was 5%, and it's sort of been coming down a little bit throughout the year. Well, now the September distribution is 8% over last September. So go figure. It doesn't look like we're going down yet. So what we've done is for year end of 22, we're assuming that we're going to be about 5% greater than 21 in revenues. This is so 22 revenues are going to be 5% over 21 revenues, because that's how we're tracking right now. And we'll certainly keep our fingers on this pulse throughout this process. And normally we don't change things as we go because the changes usually aren't significant. But if we see a change in directionality of this, I'll certainly come running out and say, time out, we need something else to consider. But this seems like a safe way to go for the rest of this year. For next year, what happened in 28 with the Great Recession it didn't really hit the city till 29 and 2010. And in 29, we had a 19% drop in sales tax. I didn't look up development because I don't know that this recession, if it happens, is going to be a development recession like it was the last time. But however, given that we budgeted flat for 23. So 22 revenues, 5% over 21. 23, we're budgeting flat, which will still be 5% over 21. And then we budgeted a 2% rebound in 23. So absent anything that tells us different, this, and we're certainly open to discuss this because I don't have a crystal ball, and this just feels like the right way to go for all this. We've done pretty good in our estimating. Last year, Councilmember Barber, you were asking how do we compare to last year's forecast? Well, we budgeted 4.3 million for or 6.3 million for general fund ending fund balance, and it looks like this year we're estimating 6.4 million. So we're pretty stable, and we're pretty much on track with all that. Let's hope we have as good a forecasting luck this year. And so with the recession.
Could I add something to this? Regarding development within the city, and that's something that we're going to continue to watch closely, but we do know, as Dave mentioned, that some of the inflationary issues that are going on are meaning that folks cannot afford to buy new homes that they may have been pre-approved for. And so we've started to see for the first time in many years a stall on the purchase of new homes, and homes that are for sale are sitting for longer and longer periods of time. That is having an impact that we're beginning to see on the development front within the city. A longer term issue that Dave and I have been talking about is the previous council set a pretty moderate or modest target for population growth over the next 20 years. And so what that will mean in the next comprehensive plan is we won't be seeing as many large plots such as Harbor Hill, North Creek, McCormick Creek, which provided a very significant amount of development related fees, particularly building permit fees, to the general fund that go to fund other aspects of the city. So we are anticipating a pretty significant drop in those fees over the next 6 years. And so that's something that we're going to continue to watch out for, but definitely account for in this budget as well.
Councilmember Barber?
Following up on what you just said, Katrina, is that something that we plan for as far as we can set some funds aside so that when that downturn comes, we can compensate for that? And are we doing that?
Yes, we are, and we have. It'll be what I'm saying, that it'll take longer than a 2-year time span. This will happen gradually over time. And so we have planned for the dips, but if we're having a period where we're substantially down, let's say 25% consistently, then we may need at some other alternatives and means. But for right now, I'm very confident in what Dave has projected for the development, a modest reduction, because we again don't have those large plots going in, and there will be a significant reduction in development related fees.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Rodenberg?
Yeah, I've been thinking about what I asked for. And what I don't want to do is create more work for staff. I know you went through a lot to trim this down so it's more efficient. And we've never been denied information if we asked for it. So maybe we don't have to put in what I asked for into this printed document here. Maybe we could have extra work sessions where we just discuss that, or maybe I know that Dave's door is always open, whether or not he has time to talk to us or not. But maybe if someone is interested enough, they can come in and look at the data instead of having staff go to the trouble to put it in this larger document. So I'm certainly open to that.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Rodenberg. We'll talk as a leadership team. I don't think it would be that difficult to add in, let's say, anything that's over 50,000. But I want to talk with Jeff and Kelly primarily because they're the ones that are asking for the most vehicles within the next period. But we definitely appreciate, and Jeff and Kelly and Dave in the presentations will talk about all of the large equipment or vehicles that they're wanting to purchase. So that'll be on the public record within the budget presentations as well. And Dave and Jeff and Kelly are always happy to talk to them.
Councilmember Look.
Yes, and I appreciate that as well. I'm hoping that some of this information can also appear in the budget for transparency and for our citizens to be able to see the actual numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so with revenues, that covers revenues, and generally we're doing 5% inflation assumed for expenditures, and so you're not going to see that a lot throughout the budget because it also is dependent on activity, and so we're pretty much going with what departments and functions have requested. But in the absence of that, let's just say utilities for my office, absent anything better, 5% is kind of the increase we're going with, and just assuming. So on to the next slide. This is, go ahead.
Sorry, I had my hand up. I had a question on the 5% inflation. Are you
Sure.
pretty comfortable with that? I mean, we've been hearing a lot of increases in capital projects that are probably a little bit more than 5%. Do you think it's going to drop a little bit later on? I mean, I know just in chats with Jeff and hearing him discuss projects when the price is doubling and the scope hasn't doubled. I mean, not that I say we have 50% inflation, but I understand it's a tough thing to pin down because you could say, well, you know, fertilizer hasn't gone up 5%, but fuel's gone up 35%. So how do you take an average? Do you do your best guess? Is the 5% like a recommendation from the state or something like that? I'm just curious where that came from.
I just pulled it out of the air, if you will, and I did it because at the time, I think when I was doing this, we were 4-ish, and I know I've been seeing the number 8 and 9 and whatnot lately. And as for projects, I just go with what Jeff sends me, and I'm assuming Jeff uses indices and all that kind of thing to go on. Jeff, I see you're ready to talk on this.
Yeah, I was going to say that the 5% isn't across capital expenditures. The capital expenditures are calculated separately.
Okay.
I believe that the number that Dave's using is for expenditures that are not capital, you know, salaries,
Okay.
consumables,
Right.
that kind of thing. But
Okay.
yeah, capital projects are completely separate. We calculate those independent.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Okay. Revenues. Let's talk about citywide revenues. This should say operating revenues. Difference between operating revenues and non-operating revenues. Operating revenues are recurring. They come in every month, every week, every day, whatever, and we use those to fund ongoing operations. So in the general fund, you have 4 big categories that mean a lot to us. Of course, sales tax is 50+% of all general fund revenues, and we pretty much live and die by that. If we fell off the table like we did in 28, 29, that was a 19% decrease. We're going to lose like 1.8 million. And that'll be the impact. Property tax is very stable. It's not going to go down, period. It'll actually go up. Even in a recession, the city has the ability to raise that by 1%. You know, so we're going to get that. The only thing that changes with property tax is the rate that is paid. Okay, because and we won't go into property tax 101, but that'll stay stable. Utility and franchise fees will pretty much stay about the same. You're not going to see that drop off much. Permit fees is the one you'll see hit too. If development and houses stop, you know, grind to a halt and all that, you'll see a hit there. Next fund, street operating fund, lives off of the general fund. It really should be part of the general fund. The reason it's not is gas tax. We're required to have a separate fund for street just to account for the gas tax, but it lives off of the annual transfer from the general fund. And then the water, sewer, and storm operating funds, of course, live off of monthly rate revenues. And those are what you see there. You won't see us talk much about forecasting with water, sewer, storm. We take care of water, sewer, storm and the revenue picture through our annual, or I don't know, our 6-year annual rate study. So every 6 years we bring in a consultant and we rip apart our GFCs, general facility charges, connection fees. We determine what those should be, and then we determine our operating rates. And then we put those in. And so we're at the end of a 6-year cycle now. You're going to be looking at coming up a new 6-year cycle of rates. And that'll set the revenue picture for the next 6 years for the utilities. And we kind of eyeball that as we go along and compare it to reality and what we're actually doing here. But it pretty much works for us and gets us the revenues we need. Any questions on revenues? Okay, so then let's go on to special things. This is our sales tax picture. And what this is meant to show is the percentage increase. So let's start in January. We were 10% over last year in January. And this shows you the picture as it goes across. And you can see in August, month over month, we were 4. September's back up where my pointer is, way up there. So that's why it's so hard to estimate where we're going right now and where we're going to be. Now we're into the special pots of money. Get a lot of questions on HBZ. And so this is the ending balance of the HBZ through the 24 biennium. This probably is going to change, because as things hit us and as we do things, a transfer or two may come out of this or whatnot, but this is what we have as of when I did this.
So Dave, I don't know if everybody knows what the hospital benefit zone is or what's special about it. You could give.
Okay, the hospital benefit zone was established back in 2010-ish, and I think it started functioning as a zone for the city. In other words, it's good for 30 years, and I think our 30 years started running in 2011. And so then we have a hospital benefit zone for 30 years. And so for every year in which we have spent $2 million of local money, the state will match $2 million of state sales tax money and distribute it to the city for that year. And we have about 16 years in the bank of functional local money that has been spent in the zone. So we have $32 million guaranteed to the city from the state through that function.
And we are the only city in the state, or the only hospital benefit zone in the state. And we are very lucky to have this money available to us. So kudos to Dave and I believe Mark Hoppin, who secured this for us, because it's definitely an asset to us.
So for example, local money spent in that zone would be the property we just purchased. If we don't use HBZ money on that property, which I don't think we have, that's $500,000 in local money. And so that's $500,000 we spent this year, and that goes into our bank to secure a future $2 million distribution.
And Dave, the HBZ zone, and Jeff, correct me as well, it goes from Rosedale north is the zone that we can spend the funds in. Is that correct?
It runs down Rosedale and goes along the waterfront. And so it's all the north, yes, from there.
Yeah. Councilmember Henderson.
A couple questions. Thank you. So the state matches 2 million. If we spend 2 million, the state matches 2 million every year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If we spend 1.95, we don't get anything, or is it a sliding scale?
Well, we have in the law, we can bank previous expenditures.
Okay.
So we're still living, I believe, off of our original dollars that we spent on the interchange when we first did it at Borg and Canterwood and that roundabout area there. I think we're still getting distributions off of that.
Okay, so we we aren't in any risk of not getting it 1 year, at least for the time being.
For the time being, no, but we need to always look at ways to spend local money there to further that, yes.
And so, although it's geographically limited to where we could spend it, is it limited by type of project?
No. It's generally anything that'll further the economics within that zone.
So it's got to be economically related. It can't be a statue or something like that.
Well, I guess it could be a statue if that brought people there. You know, it could be argued. There's parks, there's everything there.
A lot of things can be tied to this, and you'll note in the budget presentation, in particular, Jeff's budget, we're proposing to use quite a bit of HBZ funds this coming 2-year period for, I believe, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but the commercial fishing home port, which we know will bring economic vitality downtown, the sports complex, which we know will also bring economic vitality to the city. And so there's a number of large expenditures that we're undertaking or proposing to undertake to council in the next 2 years.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yes, Director Rodenbach, is besides being able to spend money out of this fund, is this a bucket that we can borrow from?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. And I'm just curious, Dave, why are we the only one who has this? Because we obviously aren't the only one with a hospital.
A long time ago, Derek Kilmer was a state senator, I believe, and he pushed this through because we were wrestling with getting the hospital in. A certificate of need was passed, and there was a lot of back and forth as far as capacity for streets and everything with the hospital and the trips it would bring. And so Derek Kilmer got this through at the Senate, and at the 11th hour, I think it was a Friday night, I think Jeff had to come up with a list of $120 million in projects to allocate to that zone, because we wanted to lock up 30 years at $2 million a year. And so half 120 is 60 million. And so we dialed up this list of projects from transportation, water, sewer, storm, and parks. And we sent that down to Olympia, and the bill got put through, and we got our ordinance with the list of projects. And so that's how we locked it up. About 8 years ago, Silverdale came knocking on our door, and they were trying to get another hospital benefit zone, and the state booted them. You know, so we are the only one.
Interesting. Thank you.
Sure.
Great, thank you. Carry on, Dave.
Okay, so now we have impact fees. Within impact fees, we have transportation and we have parks. And I believe we have about 260 or 2.6 million in transportation and about 600 in parks to play with for next year's. And those are loose numbers. I wasn't prepared to talk details like that, but that's about the magnitude of what is in there and what's available. And we actively use them every cycle. The only thing with impact fees is they're limited to growth and the growth related portion of whatever project that we're doing, as I understand it. And so if you have a street project that has 10% growth, then we can only do 10% of the impact fees for that project.
And that gets back to the LexisNexis Supreme Court case where development can pay for development, but not more than its fair share. And so as Dave said, the impact fees can pay for for the project component that is for new development, but not for existing need. So for instance, if we had an F intersection and we needed it anyway, we could not use impact fees to ease a current issue, but it could pay for the future growth portion. And Jeff, if you know off the top of your head, could you let them know what the impact fees are for transportation and parks?
The actual amount per trip or per
Yeah, per trip or per house.
I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. Impact fees, it's $5,200 or $5,300 or something. and then park is 1,500 per house.
And Jeff, you also collect for the school district, but we don't keep that money. You just set those and we collect them and give them a transfer out, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we adjust them, but then once we receive them, we exactly just transfer them over to the school district. Yep. And if you want more information on how those impact fees and the percentages, which are new versus background trips and expenses, all of that is included in the impact fee ordinance that was adopted in 2018. It's outlined in there.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. So are impact fees what we've been previously calling permit fees?
No.
No.
No, permit fees are the fees that we collect to recoup our staff time and overhead for reviewing the permits. And impact fees are fees for impacting the community that will pay for improvements because of the project moving forward.
And impact fees are paid for on every house. So the developer pays the impact fees. Obviously, they pass it on to the consumer who buys the house. So they're a one-time fee. So if we see a downturn in new building starts, then the impact fees then would drop as well.
Yes.
Well, to be clear, the impact fee level stays the same. The impact fee revenues would drop, but the impact fee.
Right.
And
But if I'm not building any new houses, then I don't have any impact fee revenue coming in. Got it.
Correct. And those are paid at the time of building permit issuance, whether it's commercial or residential. Again, commercial and residential pay impact fees for transportation. Only residential pay impact fees for parks.
Councilmember Wook.
Thank you. Jeff, am I correct in remembering that the transportation fees cover fog line to fog line? So anything we do that has sidewalks on either side is not covered under that. Is that correct? Am I remembering that?
Well, we had conversations about that, yes. And the intent of impact fees is based, and it's paid for out of improvement to PM peak hour trips. And so that was a discussion that council had when we were adopting impact fees. But really, if a project has improvements that are included with the capital project that are sidewalks, then that is part of the payment that the impact fees can pay for. I think what you're thinking about, Councilmember Rook, is the transportation benefit district.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry. That's right. Fog line to fog line there. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Ahead of your time, Dave's not there yet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And lastly, we have 6 years to spend the impact fees. And so we're pretty aggressive in spending them first in, first out. And as they come in, we try to use them because not all projects allow use of those fees. Okay, into REIT.
One more question, Dave, from Councilmember Likens.
Okay.
Thank you. So I just had a question on the park impact fees. I know you said the transportation impact fees are for percentage, of growth related to growth. Is that the same thing with the park impact fees?
It is, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, real estate excise tax. On the transfer of real property, the purchaser pays a tax, and this is the share that the city gets. The city has 1/4% and 1/4%. There's a REIT 1 and a REIT 2. And these are limited to expenditure on projects that are within the capital facilities element of the comprehensive plan. And any questions on them, happy to answer. We're probably going to be using some of those before year end. This was done before certain things came to light, but this would be our levels and that we would have. And this is just a special pot of money. It's limited to, can't be used for operations. We can't use it to buy police vehicles. We can't use it to pay staff, anything like that. This has to be for projects or land purchases.
And they have to be identified in, as Dave said, in the comprehensive plan. So in the capital facilities program or the parks capital improvement program.
And these could also be used to pay debt for such purchases.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Is this another bucket we could borrow from if we wanted?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Now we're on the Transportation Benefit District. The big takeaway from this is to look at where we're tracking. We're getting about $2 million a year in revenues into this fund from the sales tax at today's economic activity levels. So if you just tuck that away in your head and look at this, you can kind of figure where you need to go with it and what you want to do with it.
And Dave, could you just quickly describe how or when this was done and how much of this sales tax increased for that money?
Well, it was started in 21, and it's 0.002 of the sales tax, so 0.085, so 0.087. That bump is your TBD money, and so 0.2% equals that 2 million a year that we're getting.
Great. And Jeff and Dave, what can we spend this money on?
There's a list of projects that we've identified in the TBD, but essentially, as Mayor Wook alluded to earlier, it's transportation improvement projects that are on our tip that go for, and that pay for the portion that's from fog line to fog line.
Councilmember Wook, can I just say that? Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all
What is
good.
fog line to fog line?
I was gonna say someone got a promotion just right there.
I'm sorry.
I don't
There's
want
a
it.
lot going on in his mind.
Yeah, right.
I just want to also say for the TBD, we are planning on expending funds out of this for 2023 and 2024.
Great. Councilmember Likens.
Yes, could you explain fog line to fog line, what that means?
Yeah, it basically means anywhere where vehicles travel.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I just, I don't want to assume. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the white lines on the road.
It's the white
Outside.
lines that are on the side of the road and cyclists ride between the fog line and the curb if there's a curb, or the fog line and the curb when there's a fog line.
Awesome. Thank you, engineers. I appreciate it.
Okay, on to the 6-year forecast. With the 6-year forecast, we ignore 22 of the funds. Like I said before, we pretty much do a forecast with our rate analyst, Peninsula Finance Consulting, for all the utility funds. And we set the rates that are sufficient to cover expenditures and capital expenditures for those funds over the next 6 years. So those are gone. We don't forecast for the other funds except for general and street, because the others are discretionary. You know, council will set the level of funding for those funds in every budget cycle based on availability of funds. And so the meat and potatoes of what we do here is we're all worried about the general and the street operating funds, because that's what we live and die with. And that's what the citizens care about. The parks come out of the general funds. Obviously, the transportation system is in the street operating fund. And so that's where we're all really focused. And the next 2 pages after this, you're going to see it's based on trends. And I have data going back to 2020. I pretty much used the last 5-year rolling average to show where we're going, because things happening 18 years ago really aren't necessarily relevant to what's happening next year. And it seems to give us the best results. So like, for example, with wages, I've seen wage increases over the last 20 years. Even when I roll forward, we average about a 5% increase, and that accounts for staffing increases and upward pressure on actual salary ranges. Benefits, that number is 9%. And that's the number that just seems to be magical and work over the data for all those years. And so within this forecast, you're going to see a 5% and a 9% for wages, and then for benefits. Everything else, we pretty much just use trend. You know, there's a trend function in Excel, and we just pop that in. And we use it to kind of give us a feel for where we're headed as a city. Another big handicap on this is After 24, we don't have any capital projects plugged in. Now remember, the capital projects hit the general fund huge. That's one of the transfers out of the general fund into these special funds. Part of it, actually, not all of it. Of course, it comes from those special funds that I just mentioned, HBZ, TIF, REIT. But we don't really confuse it with that. We're just kind of looking at where we're going. So here we go. The first one is, this is the general fund, and this is the 6-year forecast. And Council Member Barber asked, this is, you see the 6.388 here. I think that number was 6.299 last year. So we're very stable. And what this shows me is, if you'll notice in 24, we're below our desired where we want to be, but we also have some reserves which could be used to cover that gap. Our desired ending fund balance is 60 days worth of ongoing regular operating expenditures.
Mhm.
So in other words, if I transfer $1 million to streets for a project, other than maintenance, regular maintenance, I don't count that as a regular ongoing operating expense. You know, so we have 60 days worth of costs for the general fund, and that's what that green line is going all the way across. And our policy is we try to have at least a fund balance matching that 60 days.
Councilmember Henderson, did you have a question on this slide?
Yeah, so Dave, where does maintenance come out of does it come out of the general funds? Like, say we need to replace a new sewer lift station. It's a rather large ticket item.
That comes out of the sewer fund.
Okay. And do we do forecasts on like sewer funds, water funds, whatever, street funds, everything else?
Yes, we do. When we do our rate study, we look at maintenance trends. We look at, it's essentially, it's an allocation between how much do you want ratepayers to spend on future capital needs versus new development. That's the GFC side of it. The ratepayer side of it is, what do we need to operate this thing and keep it going? And we're in our bond covenants, we're required to keep things in working order and at a high level of maintenance. And so all that is covered within the rate study.
Okay.
To cover those costs.
I know Jeff has the rate study under control and looking at it, and my assumption is that they're going to start looking out a little ways when, you know, we always build these instant housing tracts like one that I live in. Everybody came in at the same time, which means everything's going to start breaking at the same time. So I know Jeff is looking at that and making sure that in 15 years, it's not like, oops, we got to replace all the sewer lift stations in Harbor Hill.
Absolutely. And as we've said in each one of our CIP schedule updates, that utility rate study, I have been holding on to that and not moving it forward, but I will, because it's critical that we get to that. And we talking to Katrina about an option for 2023, but we've got to get that moving. And as soon as I get some time, I will be presenting at a council study session with Ashley Emery from Peninsula Financial Consulting, both general facilities charge and the proposed monthly rate updates for 6 years.
Great, thank you.
Now back to part of your question, you said, does that come out of general fund? What does come out of general fund for maintenance is a sinkhole in a street.
Right.
Or something like that, because that would be a general fund. Okay, so there's the general fund 6-year forecast. So as you can see, 25 has no capital, but 23, 24 is with every project and whatnot that we're wrestling with right now in the preliminary budget. And that's where we're sitting right now. And you'll see the details behind that when we start getting into our study sessions and presentations. Okay, and then here's the street operating fund forecast. And not all that different, just lower numbers. And we're pretty good there too. And that's by design, because the general fund, of course, makes sure that this one is solvent.
Dave, just to reiterate, the street operating fund exists directly from general fund money.
Right, it would have to, yeah,
Yes,
because we don't have people pay for roads or toll
right.
roads.
And so, and that's why Dave has them called out separately. And you'll see when in Jeff's budget presentation with all the funds that he manages for wastewater, we have charges or fees that we get for that, as well as stormwater and water, but streets, we do not have that. And so as Dave was mentioning, that's why the street operating fund is highly dependent on general fund.
And just real quick, I wanted to acknowledge that Councilmember Denson has arrived. Welcome, welcome, Robin. Councilmember Henderson.
Just quick, how many years out do you forecast? Is it always like 6-year cycles, or does anybody sit down and scratch their head and say, let's look at 40 years or 50?
We just do 6.
Okay.
For our utility comprehensive plans, we do look out 20 years.
Okay, good.
Yeah, for capital expenses.
Great.
Okay, and that's it for this. We'll stop sharing that, and then we want to talk about staffing, I think.
Yeah, and Dave, if I could just show a spreadsheet quickly
Sure.
before we get to the other one. Councilmember Rodenberg has a
Yeah, I was
question.
going to ask.
Yeah, I just had one more question in it. I wanted to wait till you got done. Of the buckets of money that we can borrow from that I identified, and I think there's a couple others, what kind of interest rate is the city pay itself?
We usually pay 1% over what the LGIP is paying. So I don't know right now where that is right now.
I don't
Probably.
need to know that, but the 1% over is good enough for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so Dave obviously put out a lot of information, and so some of you that may not have been on council before will have questions, and Dave and me and the department heads were more than happy to help work through some of those more minute questions. And if you think that your question is stupid, it's not, because I bet you someone else has the same question. So if you send those to us, we can respond to them and send them to everyone so that everyone has the answers they need.
Can we take a quick break at some point too, please? I don't know when it's best to do that.
Do you want to do that now, Katrina, before we get into the, yeah, let's do that now. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Except for
Can I ask
Councilmember
just
Husband.
one
Jenny had a
question?
question, sorry.
Councilmember Wilk, before we
So
go.
we got some money, I think, from COVID that we still, from federal money, I believe, that we still haven't used. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have. We got. Let's just say we got about 3 million. We probably have 2.5 million left.
Did that go in the general fund?
It's in the general fund. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Okay,
And
thank
with
you.
that question, Councilmember Luke, we plan on discussing that with the council as well during the budget work sessions.
Yes, and so yes, we will break until 3:21. So we'll take about 5 minutes.
Thanks.
Welcome back to the Gig Harbor City Council study session of Thursday, September 29th. The time is 3:24 p.m. And before we continue on with our budget discussion, we are pleased to have Larry Bradbury here with us. He is our second appointee to the Design Review Board, and I wanted to give him a chance to let you know a little bit about himself. And so Larry, if you could just spend a few minutes telling us a little bit about you and why you would like to serve on the Design Review Board.
Well, I have about a 40-year background in contracting and acquisition, a significant part of it in construction and general civil works administration with the Army Corps of Engineers. And so this is something that appealed to me from the beginning to become involved with and provide contributions to our city in an area where I have some background. I am not an architect. I am not an engineer, and that gives me a little bit different perspective.
I would agree with that. And so council, do you have any questions for Larry that you would like to ask? Councilmember Henderson.
Oh, just a quick one. Thank you. What district were you in, Larry?
Seattle district.
Oh, okay, I was Sacramento district, 32 years.
Yeah, so you know the scene. I had actually interviewed for the Sacramento district at one point and wound up in Seattle.
Nice place.
Councilmember Wook.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Larry, thanks. Thank you for reapplying again. So you mentioned just now that it gives you a different perspective than an architect. And why is that important?
I think that's very important. As you know, the bylaws restrict the numbers of architects or engineers that you want on the design review board. People with that background dig very much into the weeds of the specific designs and will frequently comment on the design elements themselves, which I think is valuable. But on the other hand, somebody that comes in from the outside can, in my case, can comment on the application of costs and other parameters that come into reviewing a design and how it fits into the community profile.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Larry, for reapplying, and we're happy to have you here as a volunteer with the city and appreciate your willingness to serve, and look forward to having you stay on.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your confidence.
You're welcome, and you're welcome to continue and watch the rest of our budget process, or we can wish you a very happy evening.
It would be interesting, but I do have some other things I need to do this afternoon. I do appreciate the part of it I did here, though. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome to watch the YouTube video later. So it's always online for you.
Well, have a
again,
good
Larry.
remainder of the session today.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay. Katrina, we'll go ahead and turn it back over to you for our staffing discussion.
Great, and thank you very much, Mayor. Dave will show your document after this one, and this should not take very long. But we do want to give council a relative picture of the staffing requests that will be coming forward to you in the form of director presentations at the next few work sessions. And prior to that, wanted to just take an opportunity to show our FTE levels comparative to our population from 2000 until 2022. I will say that there is one department, the police department, that's requesting 4 new officers that the mayor and I are supporting in this budget. And so it may seem quite like a lot, but we do feel, again, like all the positions that are being requested, that our population has increased in such a way, and especially within the police department, they not only serve the citizens of the city, but also the almost 25,000 people that come into our city every day. So whereas our permitting staff, for instance, are working with folks that own property within the city, our police department are dealing with people that are coming from all over the area, wherein our population increases to about 25,000 each day. And that was verified by the Puget Sound Regional Council as part of their mini 2020 census work. And so we just thought it'd be really appropriate to show you our staffing levels over time and also comparative to our population. Can you see my screen?
We can see it. Well, I can see it.
Is it too small?
Yes, too small.
Too small, okay.
Better?
I'm seeing nodding head. Oh, Brenda, what were you asking for? Wider or?
Or just a little bigger? I'm still
a little bit bigger.
Okay, it'll be, you won't be able to see the chart below, but that's okay.
And you you all can zoom in yourselves too from the top of your Zoom screen. I don't know if you know how to do that, but you can do that too.
Okay. And I'm happy to send this out as well in case you don't want to squint at your screen for now. But essentially, what you can see here is we don't have exact population dates for every year because we don't do a census every year. But you can see the general population up top by year here, and then it breaks out FTEs by fund and department for a total budgeted staffing here at the bottom. And what I'd like to point out is we were at 6454 total population in 2000 with a budgeted FTE of 59. When we go up to, let's see, and you can really see what Dave said earlier about the recession hitting us a little bit later. We had 100.2 employees in 2008. And just what's important to see here, at least for me, is we did not grow that much. Maybe a little, Jeff is better at math, but around 600 people maybe here between 2000 and 2010. And if you look at our staffing level increase, we went from 59 to 100 in that time when we only increased that amount of population. As we continue to move along the years, you can see that 7126 in the next 10-year time frame at 2020 went up to 10 to 80. And so that's a very significant increase in our population here at 2020, where we're at 113.4 comparative to our 82 or 100 even prior to the recession. So we really didn't gain that many employees is the message that I'm trying to convey here. Between pre-recession, it took us a while to even make up for what we had before, all the way up to 2017. And then that's when the population really started to increase, the amount of houses, the amount of residents we have increased. And our new 2022 number, we've now broken 13,000 people. And so we have 116.8 employees budgeted for currently this year. And Dave, I don't know if you'd like to, well, first, are there any questions on this sheet before we get to a preview of department staffing asks?
Not seeing any.
Thanks for reading my eyes, because I can only see 5 of you at the work. All this is up on my screen.
No problem.
Okay. Dave, did you want to pull up the other sheet that we have? And this is in no way meant to take the department heads thunder from what they're requesting of you. But as we're coming with, it's not a significant staffing ask, but it is more than what we've seen in past years. We just wanted to give you that overview of how many has been budgeted since 2020 or 2000, and especially the increase in our responsibilities over, in particular, the last 6 years. So on here, you can see the municipal court is not proposing additional staffing. Under administration, we have moved the parks manager, so I want to make sure that this is updated under public works. But we are not proposing any additional there. We are proposing a new safety risk management officer in human resources. And this position will primarily take over safety, which is currently mixed bag isn't the right way, but a lot of employees pitch in to safety, and it's not as much of a coordinated effort as what RMSA would like us to have. Additionally, this risk management person, this would take some work off of Josh, who receives our complaints and some of our smaller pieces of litigation. For instance, if you trip over the sidewalk, or a branch hits your car, or a rock flies off of one of our crew's trucks and hits someone's car, this person would go through and handle all of their risk and safety for the organization. Under finance, Dave has not asked for additional staff. I don't even remember the last time, Dave, that you did. However, under this budget, he is requesting an additional senior accountant. And this is just it really goes to the growth of the organization and what we're asking the finance department to handle. And you'll hear a lot more from Dave on this, but we are asking for one more senior accountant. Under the police department, you will see that we are on top of the community services officer. That will be the new property and evidence technician at a 1.0 FTE. So that increases the line where you can see community service officer. That will be property and evidence at a 1.0.
Can you
We
scroll
are
down?
Dave, can you scroll down?
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Barber. So what you can see here is we're asking for 4 new officers in the next, for the next 2 years. That would be, talked to Chief Busey yesterday, probably 2 entry-level officers, potential for 1 more lateral, and then a new lateral for a new detective. And so that will be great. The chief did ask for 5, and what we discussed yesterday, again, once you see the full budget overview, you'll see some of the budget restrictions that were under. The 5th officer, we would come back to council mid-budget, so at the end of 2023, and if our projections are under, or if we have more revenue than what we're proposing, then we would request authorization to hire the 5th officer at the end of 2023. And I see Kelly just came on here, but as he was explaining, you know, it's not easy to hire officers. Right now, we're one of the most blessed cities in Washington state to have a full police force at this point. And so Kelly may not even be able to fill the 4, but he will have that authorization. And then hopefully if our revenues are above what we're projecting, then we would come to council and seek authorization to hire a 5th officer that would be an additional entry-level officer. And Kelly, no, I see that you came on, so I'm assuming would you like to say something?
Only to add that we anticipate at least 2 retirements in the first 6 months of next year. So instead of trying to recruit and hire 4 positions, as Katrina has outlined, we'd really be looking to probably make 7 hires soon. Keeping in mind too that those salaries don't affect the budget starting January 1. The hiring process is months long.
Yeah, and Kelly and Dave and I had a nice chat about this yesterday, and I think it's how, you know, how the money is actually spent and how we forecast our budget for those 2 are 2 different things. Yes, Councilmember Rodenberg.
Well, I just heard that we're going to try and get some entry level officers, and we haven't been able to do that in the past because when we needed the officers, we needed them immediately. So Chief, is it true now that since we are fully staffed now, it gives us the cushion to wait that, what is it, 120 days between the hiring process and between when the officer can actually be solo in the car? So we have that cushion. Is that what we're saying when we ask now for entry level?
Kind of, I wince when we use the term fully staffed right now. We're fully staffed to what was authorized in 2018. But you're partially correct. We have enough, maybe tolerance would be the right word, to put somebody through the academy. I think that benefits the department for a couple of reasons. We need to get a little bit younger in some ways. As we've discussed for months now or years, the hiring pool for laterals is very tough right now. So I think we need to consider entry levels at this point and kind of make a mixture of the 2.
Great, thank you, Kelly. And more to come in Kelly's presentation. Community development is not requesting any additional full-time staff. They will be requesting a part-time planner to come on during the comprehensive plan process, but that will not be an FTE per se. So that's not listed on here. Under Public Works, Director Linghelm is requesting 2 new positions, which you can see highlighted here. One is an engineering project manager, and the other is an NPDES coordinator. And in meeting with Jeff and noting the council's desires for the multiple capital projects that were under review, having this additional engineering project manager that is not, that's a different classification from the engineers that we have now, will provide an unmet need that we have in that department to be able to do some additional work, as well as the NPDES coordinator. Council, you've passed recent stormwater code changes that are going to require additional commercial inspections and additional oversight in the city stormwater management system. And this work is going to be quite significant. And so when Director Langholm asked to put this in the budget, it was almost a no-brainer to ensure that we have that expertise within the department and ensure that we're meeting our Department of Ecology guidelines. And Jeff, I see you unmuted yourself.
I just wanted to note that NPDS coordinator would be 100% funded through the stormwater utility, 0 through the general fund, and more than half of the engineering project manager would be funded through a combined funding of the 3 utilities. So not a large impact to the general fund.
Thank you, Jeff. Councilmember Wu.
Can you remind me of the acronym for NPDES?
I will ask Jeff too, because I'll probably get it wrong.
National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. It's a federal acronym and it covers not just stormwater. And so I guess I could be more clear, NPDES Phase 2 coordinator. NPDES also is the requirements from the federal government for our wastewater sewer discharge. So,
and much needed. Thank you.
And this position will also help cross-coordinate with the community development department. I expect this position to coordinate with code enforcement officer Blodgett quite a lot, and then potentially Jeff even over on the comprehensive plan side with the expertise needed for pertaining to stormwater. So I think this is a really good add for the city, and it will definitely help us keep up with the requirements that are being placed upon the city, which are pretty significant with these recent revisions. Councilmember Likens has a question.
Yes, thanks. On the parks manager, I see it has a 1.0 FTE in 2020 and 2021, but then it goes to 0.
That's because it was moved under administration under the previous mayor, and we've moved that position back under Public Works. And so
okay,
it was under administration on this, but we'll make sure that it's properly under Public Works, under Jeff's management.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't moving it back or what was going on. Thanks.
And while we're talking about Parks Manager, not that we're here to talk about this per se, but Interim Director Shannon Costanti sent me an email that there's 2 candidates that will be conducting second interviews on likely next week. So kudos to Jeff and Shannon and team for working through those interviews expeditiously, and we look forward to presenting our successful candidate. I know that many of you have asked, and community members as well. So. And so that really concludes the presentation today. Dave gave a very general overview of the requirements, the funds that we have. Maybe there's some new terms that you haven't heard before. Again, all of us are happy to help council seasoned and new council members with going through here and hopefully showing the population increase, especially comparative to the number of FTEs, can show that perhaps the city has not kept up with staff positions. And we know that we've heard that from staff pretty significantly, that their workloads have gotten more, in some instances, more than what they think is reasonable or can handle and still maintain a healthy work-life balance. And so I really applaud the directors for looking critically at their departments and seeing where can they add positions that will assist with the processing of all of the work that they're charged to do. And the mayor and I feel very strongly that the positions that we have just discussed with you are not only needed, but will definitely assist in workload management and getting the projects that council is requesting that we get done accomplished.
Yeah.
And
Councilmember.
Councilmember Barber.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. This, as a newbie, this really helped to give me an overview and figure out what's what and where things go. And I also want to commend you on the new layout and discussion. I think it will really help all of us to be able to know from the work sessions what we're getting, but not have it bogged down in the detail in the doorstop either. So I really, really appreciate where you're coming from, and also the emphasis on our employees, because they are our biggest asset and we could not function without them.
And I know that it's really awesome to have city staff know that not only the mayor supports them, but that the council supports them as well, and is continually asking how we can support them. So really big shout out to council as well. It's really great to work with all of you on this. I did have one more item that I wanted to address that is semi-budget related. We have been coming up with an issue in our hiring recently. As you may know, a lot of jobs are open and it's really job seekers market out there right now. And so the issue that we're coming up with is the personnel regulations currently say that unless under extenuating circumstances, that if we're trying to bring a candidate in over mid-step, that we need council approval. And we, in the past, have not had to come to council very often for that because the market was not as such as it is now. However, we have lost candidates because of this. So we offer the position at, let's say, a step 4, and they are requesting more money. And we then would need to go to council, which could take up to 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get on your agenda for approval. And so some of these job seekers, in particular, the ones that are very highly qualified, they may have more than one job offer on the table at a time. And so they're not willing to wait. And also some of them don't want their name on a council bill because that shows their current employer that they're seeking employment somewhere else, which could have ramifications for their position. So there is language within the personnel regulations that the city administrator could notify the council that due to changing extenuating circumstances, that the city administrator would take back essentially that process and be able to bring people in over midpoint for a period of time. And so I wanted to notify council today that because of these extenuating circumstances and our dire need to hire in critical positions, that I am requesting the ability to bring employees in over midpoint, at least for the next 6 months, and then we can revisit it at that time. At no point will I go over what is recommended by our HR director or department heads in terms of experience related to total salary. And additionally, I will never go over the total amount authorized on the salary scale. But I do want to be able to go after and bring in and be competitive to new candidates that are wanting to work at the city, but may not be able to wait that long for the process to go through. And so wanted to bring that forward to council today under this budget discussion.
Thank you, Katrina. Councilmember Storsett.
Yes, thanks, Katrina. So you already answered one of my questions, was basically what can we do? Do you need anything from the council for this as far as direction, or is this something that you and the mayor are able to execute to lift, I guess, the midpoint piece?
We can execute it without notification to council technically, but that's not how we wish to operate. And
Okay.
so coming to council today, letting you know that we've identified this as an issue, and we think a temporary solution, at least for the next 6 months, would be to authorize the city administrator under their discretion to make these hiring decisions.
Okay, and one other, I guess, part to it, just, I guess, again, how's the rest of the staff going to view this as well? And I think of when they were hired, if it's not during this time and being below the midpoint possibly, and knowing new hires are coming on, kind of stating the obvious. I know we're in a meeting, but I'm imagining that's what's going through their minds. So something that I think needs to be considered as well, because that's exactly why some people are leaving and maybe coming to Gig Harbor if we're, lifting that. So we don't want our same staff to think the same thing and go elsewhere, and we're all just trading. We want to keep everybody we've got. So it's my thoughts. Thanks.
That is such a great point, and that is something that Director Costanti and I have talked about as well. And we will not abuse this, of course. We want to bring people in commensurate with their experience. But with this, I've also asked HR to look at employees that have been hired under the previous administration under this new scale, and determine how many people perhaps were brought in under their under the step that they maybe should have been brought in. And I want to see the extent of what that issue is, and then come forward with a plan potentially to correct some of that. But we're in the very preliminary stages of that, but we are looking into it and trying to rectify those. Of course, we'll have to bargain that with the union and all of that, but it is something that we're looking into and hoping to make adjustments.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Roden.
Yes.
Sorry, Katrina, you go.
I fully support this action. And I think Director Costanzi and City Administrator Knudsen should have the ability to do that. And I think to anybody, I know a past council, and I appreciate rectifying any past, not necessarily injustices, but what might seem as that now, rectifying that. When you talk about $6,000 or $7,000 a year difference in bringing somebody in, that's nothing. Even with benefits, that's nothing compared to waiting months without someone, or the cost of trying to recruit. So, boy, I fully support it. And I have every confidence in City Administrator and Director Costani to do the right thing.
Councilmember Wolf?
Yes, I fully support this for a period of 6 months. And look forward to seeing what the other salary information that you find out about those folks who perhaps were brought in at a different level looks like. So thank you.
And once we have that data, if we can, we'll share that with council, perhaps just generally how many we found. We won't be able to tell you obviously the names and exact numbers, but we can tell you what we found generally and what our proposed path is moving forward to the union on those modifications. And that goes as well with the salary survey that we're intending to do, that you'll see in the budget for next year, that will look at job descriptions, making sure that we have exactly what folks are doing in their job description and comparing those to the market, and potentially having some adjustments to that through both the supervisory and employee union negotiations that'll occur after summer, or at the end of summer, beginning next year. And I really appreciate this. I saw a lot of nods, so I'm thinking we're going to go forward with a period of 6 months, and we'll report back.
Looking like it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, council.
Yes, thank you, council. We are trying so hard to do a lot of things that should have been done many years ago, and trying to, just carry on with a brand new culture, a brand new attitude, a brand new, recognition and appreciation of our staff and how very hard they work for our city. And so all of the support that you are giving to Katrina and I is really appreciated in these decisions and changes we're trying to make to keep our employees for a very long time. That's the goal. We want to keep them here, and so just really appreciate your support so much. Are there any other questions from council generally for budget or otherwise? Kelly, I saw your hand go up real quick. Did you have something that you wanted to add?
I have some late breaking good news. It's off topic. So why don't you field questions from council about budget stuff, and then I have something good to tell you.
Okay, Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, this is not budget, but it's employee. How's the survey went out? What's the status of the employee survey right now?
It's been oh, go ahead, Katrina.
Oh, you can if you want.
Well, we had 82% success rate or participation rate, I should say, which is really high for an employee survey. We've been told by Director Costanti. So super happy to see that amount of involvement. And Katrina, if you want to go into what the timing looks like from this point forward and when we'll all see the information that came from the survey.
Yes, it generally takes them about 3 weeks to compile all of the information together into a report for us. And we should have a first look at that in probably 2.5 weeks from now. And once we have that information, we're planning to schedule the consultant to come to council similar as last time to say, these are the, here's the general flavor, here's what you're doing really well, here's what you could improve on. And then we're also going to have a presentation with staff at an all-staff meeting about the results of the survey and begin to talk about some work group committees that we can bring together folks from every department to work on maybe the top 3 or 4 issues that are the highest desire or need of the employees and work toward them, resolving them.
Yes, excited to see the results. Kelly, what is your good news?
Some of you may know that the fly shop downtown was burglarized about a week ago. Pretty significant burglary. So late yesterday, our detectives identified the main suspect. And during the course of our study session here, went over to Tacoma, located him, and after about a 5-block foot chase, got him in custody.
Wow. Oh, amazing.
It's great.
Amazing. That is such great news. Kelly, thank you for sharing that.
What did they do with
on a high
him?
note? What's that, Councilmember?
Goes to your team.
What did they do with him?
That's a great question in this jail environment. I believe we'll be able to book this one into jail.
Oh,
I
good,
sure hope
good,
so.
good.
Gosh. Yeah, hoping that as all the COVID things lift, jails will open again so that we can get our streets a little safer and take some pressure off our police departments a little bit. And that's nationwide, statewide, our police departments need some support there, and they need to be able to apprehend these folks and keep them away for the appropriate amount of time. Katrina.
Thank you. I want you guys to think about Kelly's good news when we exit the meeting, because I didn't want to have to talk after him. But 2 things. If you haven't already sent in your legislative ideas for the legislative session, feel free to please send those to me by tomorrow. And then wanted to bring this forward. There's been a couple of council members that are requesting that our work sessions, since they're generally taking 2 hours, if we can make them from 3 to 5 rather than 2 to 5. That would really help 2 of our council members that are working for a living also, and have their council life balance be a little bit better. So we were hoping maybe we could give that a shot. Obviously not the budget ones, but all of the other work sessions. If we could go 3 to 5, that would help those council members.
Great.
Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up, lots of thumbs up. Great,
Okay.
awesome. Thank you,
so much.
Council. Councilmember Barber.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure the 2 budget workshop sessions that are coming up are on October 17th and 18th, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure my calendar was right. Thank you.
Yeah, the budget ones are always a little off from the normal schedule. So yes, thanks for confirming that. Councilmember Storsa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out back to Chief Busey on his update. I just feel like in general, when we have these incidents that have occurred and I tend to see them maybe on Facebook first, just because they're so rapid, but I love the way that your team closes these things out. And I don't know what your success rate is of catching the bad guy kind of a thing, but to me, in my perception, it seems really high. Your guys' detective work and not just letting things pass. I think the community really notices that. And if they don't, we need to get that out there more. So you guys did an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Storsa. We were intentionally very silent on social media on this one for some investigative reasons. So
until it's closed, right? So yeah. Very good.
then shout it from the rooftops about your success. Okay, well, if there are no other questions from council, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Have a great day, everybody.
enjoy
Have a
this
wonderful
beautiful
trip,
night.
Jenny.